Luke, the other team that is tearing it up, we talked a little about this in the intro, is the Detroit Lions. Lions robbed, by the way, this weekend.
Scandal. An absolute. We're not going to get into officiating talk because it's kind of dull, and this particular one has been covered to death. But for those that didn't see it, the Lions somehow end up with a chance to win the game against the Cowboys.
No, they won the game. They won the game.
No, but I'm saying they should never even have been in the position, right? The end of game management by Mike McCarthy was
awful,
horrendous, and led to the Lions having the ball with under 2 minutes to go and a chance to win the game. They drive down the field. They had done very little on offense throughout most of that game. Jared Goff had a bad game. Amon-Ra St. Brown scores a touchdown. They run a fun, tackle-eligible play for a 2-point conversion to take a 1-point lead and probably almost certainly win the game. Then it was chalked off for the
illegal touching.
Illegal touching, my favorite name of any penalty in the NFL, which is basically because they threw it to a tackle who said he was not an eligible receiver, and it turned out that he actually did, and the ref got confused, and then the refs, as they always do, circle the wagons and say, well, these things happen, but basically the refs completely botched it. That is a very DFI way to lose a game, for sure.
It is, in the DFI. You still step it up for the DFI as they win 11 games.
Yeah. I like to think of the DFI as like quicksand or a tar pit. Like you climb it out, and then just one bit sticks on your leg and just pulls you back down. So robbed. The even more downtrodden was that Philadelphia then lost. So had Detroit won the game, they'd be the 2 seed, but actually they're not because they got robbed of a win, literally robbed of a win. Anyway,
and would still have had a shot at the 1 seed. By the way,
it would have been alive and kicking, but as it is, not to be the case. Lions nonetheless had a great season, clinched the NFC North for the first time since the NFC North existed. They're top 5 in yards per game on offense, passing yards and rushing yards and points. Last I checked, that's pretty good. Defense has been improved slightly from last year, where it was pretty disastrous, catastrophic. They're not great on defense. They're still kind of in the middle of the lower end of the pack, kind of 10th worst in points per game, allowing 23 per game, which is not great. But the offense has been great and diverse in how it attacks people, which has been fantastic. Ben Johnson will almost certainly be a head coach.
Shout out Jahmyr Gibbs.
Season. Jahmyr Gibbs been great. Montgomery been fantastic. Sun God done his thing. Laporta's been a guy. The offensive line's been decent. Goff's had some good games, some bad games, but he's overall played well throughout the season.
Good enough. He's done what he needed to do.
Lions,
not giving the game away.
Not giving the game away. The Lions, a dangerous playoff team, hosting a playoff game for the first time since God knows when. It was probably since, it was still called Constantinople, not Istanbul. And looking forward to some Atmo there in Detroit. Very impressed with the Lions. One of the better teams in the league this year, I would say, on the whole. And yeah, impressive. Not in a position to get out of the DFI yet because of the decades of futility that preceded this, but a team that looks to be built to last. So impressive season, and I think they're in a good spot going forward. I would expect them to be solid again next year, pending, of course, the offensive coordinator situation, which, as we know, can have a huge bearing on how teams fare year to year. My Titans would be a good case in point of this.
As with
great offense. Yeah, great offense where the offensive coordinator leaves doesn't stay a great offense a lot of the time. So maybe pump the brakes on that. But in terms of the roster construction, I think they are built in a very strong way, very youthful across the board, got some young stars, got some solid veterans. I think this is a team that could be good for a couple of years to come.
Yep. No, I think you've nailed it. The difference to me between the Browns and the Lions is that last point. I think the Lions have built their team correctly. They built it from the inside out. The line is good. The defense is getting better. They've got good enough position players. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was a fantastic pick, and they're using him well. Bringing in
widely mocked at the time as well, lest we forget, for taking a running back, having got rid of a running back. Well, we got rid of DeAndre Swift, and we're bringing in this other. We got rid of Jamal Williams. We signed David Montgomery for money, and we drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, 12th overall.
Is Montgomery Gibbs really that much better than Williams and Swift? And the answer appears to be at least as good. And, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to command a crazy contract at some point. So they're going to have to deal with that.
4th round pick too. So that's coming.
Homegrown, low pick. I mean, just done the right way. Whereas you look at the Browns and you go, all right, this team is being held together by a defense that is otherworldly, Super Bowl caliber, one of the best defenses the last 5-6 years, certainly. But how can you continue to pay these edge rushers? Can you continue to keep that defense together when you've got a dead weight at quarterback that's costing you $250 million, $1 billion dollars,
and an inescapable contract, not like the Russell Wilson contract where you can take. You can get out of the Deshaun Watson contract if you pay him all of the money on it. That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, and it's if they wanted to get away from it, they'd have to do a restructure where they push ad years on the end and spread the cap hit over a long time.
There's
and do
always
a big
a way,
guaranteed
but
payout.
it's still.
But yeah, it's going to be an absolute nightmare, and he's going to have to get his full $250 million. And when you look at that versus where they're sitting in Detroit, now Detroit's other issue is Jared Goff isn't 15, right? He's getting older. And you do wonder how long he's got it. He's not been as good this year in my mind as he was last year. Can they keep it together? And as long as their situation is not dependent on a prolific star quarterback, like he's kind of got the same feel for me right now as Kirk Cousins.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Yeah.
He's not blowing you away, but he's doing enough. The team's winning when he's playing. The team's probably not winning if he's not playing. So can you keep that quality of quarterback play around for the intermediate to long term? If they can, I think they're in a much better situation to be good longer, to maybe find their way to climb that ladder out of the DFI pit from what is certainly one of the lower rungs. Certainly moving up, to your point, I'm not ready to take them out. You don't wipe literally decade. This team has not won the playoff game since 89, 91, something. I mean, it's forever.
It's 19. I think it was 1993 because it was the last time they won the division. I think they won a playoff game that year, but it's early 90s for sure.
Unbelievable. But I mean, so decades of futility does not get wiped off by. But the other thing that they're doing that Cleveland's not doing is getting progressively better. Cleveland was a disaster last year. They've been good this year. Cleveland was a disaster 2 years ago. It's what made them bring in Watson. Baker was, they ran Baker out of time. I mean, like they've not done the thing. Detroit brought in a mentally unstable but relatively successful head coach. I don't know if you saw his presser. He's like, "Well, would you be frustrated?" I'm like, whoa, yeah. Dan,
intense
whoa.
guy.
Yeah, bites kneecaps. I think was one of his other quotes. We're a kneecap biting team.
We'll bite your kneecaps. That was his introductory presser, I think, as the coach.
So. Interesting character, maybe is the right way to say it, but he's getting it done for him at the same time. And so that's very different in my mind than Cleveland, which has certainly overperformed this year what you would have expected given their situation. And you got to give them their platitudes for that, but not as, in my mind, set up to be as good for as long, notwithstanding, obviously, what is a fantastic defense.